Let's now get some more perspectives on the judgment delivered today by the Supreme Court on the Osun State governorship elections. And joining us live from our Abuja studios is a senior advocate of Nigeria and Vice Chancellor of Bayes University in the Federal Capital Territory in Abuja, Professor Tahir Mamman. I want to thank you so much indeed for joining us tonight on the News at 10. Now, this legal tussle, all over and done with, the elections also done with. How did you receive the news of the judgment by the nation's highest court?
Well, with some relief, certainly when these cases take their route from the trial to the appeal stage, it has a way of affecting administration in the states and the jurisdictions affected by those contests. So it must have come as a great relief to the people of Osun State. And then in the case of INEC, obviously it's one, they would tick off one of their 700 or probably 701 cases, because from the report they gave, there are about 700 petitions which they are grappling with, arising from the last elections, and then about 800 different ones from the pre-election cases. So we are actually besieged as a country by politicians who are impatient with processes and procedures and people who want to cut corners. And then, of course, for the Supreme Court, handling so much, with so much in their docket over the same problem that we're talking about. So it's a relief to everybody. And I want to commend, actually, the attitude of Senator Adeleke, who is very conciliatory and congratulated Governor Oyetola, which is the way politicians should be behaving. And then on core legal prostitution, actually, it's not quite a surprise because much of it depends on or rested on well-established principles of law in terms of regularity and stability in panels in panels when they are sitting, and of course, again, indirectly, although it didn't come out directly from the judgment, even INEC too, to some extent, will be relieved because it's the kind of affirmation of its principle of margin of lead, which is there in the regulations and indirectly in the Electoral Act. So it has clarified quite a number of things related to election petition cases.
If I may jump in, if I may jump in here,
to everybody.
My apologies. If I may just jump in here, what do you make of the minority judgment, particularly regarding the announcement of the election inconclusive, which the two justices considered illegal, and that it gives room for manipulation of polls?
Well, as you can imagine, just so the Supreme Court and obviously Court of Appeal, where you have panels sitting, are fiercely independent. So each judge or justice is entitled to look at things differently, and that's what those two justices have looked at. The only thing probably to note is the reason they are anchoring their decisions on, some of them go against previous decisions of even the Supreme Court on the issues at stake. And then with respect, you also find some imputation of certain motives to INEC officials, which to me didn't have to be a reason really to anchor their judgment. But otherwise, really, these are gentlemen who are time-tested and they're entitled to take those views. And they enrich actually our jurisprudence with those positions, particularly if they are well argued out and rest on very sound principles of law.
Are there lessons to be learned by the electoral umpire, INEC?
Yes. Well, the main really people who should be learning more lessons is even the politicians, not just the INEC. INEC is a respondent in all these cases. It doesn't initiate petitions. except to the extent that it has to do its work properly and ensure that every step it takes is guided by basic principles of law, the Electoral Act, and the Constitution. Much of what has happened rested the controversies on all those inconclusive elections, which lawyers and judges have had various views on it, and even members of the public. But it is there in the regulations, and it is a way of discovering actually the opinion of the electorate, the decision of the electorate. And then it's a solution to our own peculiarity as a country in terms of the attitude of politicians, and then even the voters, really, who always want to cut shortcut in elections. So in determining who wins at elections, INEC has tried everything possible to ensure that the votes of every voter counts, and this is what has led to all this. So the main lesson for everybody is for us to really do things fairly and transparently. This is the key thing. If transparency is the watchword, there will be less contest, there will be less resort to litigation by politicians, and we hope more confidence in the electoral system and elections, generally speaking.
We must thank you so much indeed for talking to us, the Senior Advocate of Nigeria and indeed the Vice Chancellor of Bayes University, Professor Tahir Mamman. Many thanks indeed for talking to us.